Well, hello and welcome, everyone. I know we have people on the line, listening on the phone, and we're also streaming on Facebook right now. So I just want to congratulate you for joining us. Sean and I, and along with Helen, are really excited about this new program that we're bringing out and presenting. And Sean Sean was actually our first feng shui teacher, Helen and I. And he was instrumental in helping us, get our practice up and running, become consultants and then teachers. He also introduced us to Professor Lin Yun, Grandmaster Lin Yun, our lifelong teacher. And now, since the 80s, Sean has been working a lot with crystals, natural crystals for healing, for space adjustment, for various things, for energy. And just recently, he's created, along with Helen and I, a new school of feng shui utilizing crystals. And Sean has a very strong background in the use of crystals. As a matter of fact, he started in the 80s. Then in 1998, he started actually, working with crystals, selling crystals, buying and selling crystals. And then in the early 2000s, he actually started going to Brazil and bringing back just crate loads of beautiful crystals, all kinds. I'll let Sean explain, a lot more to you. But he has a very deep knowledge in the use of all types of crystals. And the use of crystals in feng shui can create a very, very powerful approach to adjusting your space. So before I go on too long, Sean, I'll let you take it over.
Oh, great. Thanks so much. And thank everyone for joining us today. As James mentioned, I started with crystals and rocks and minerals as a little kid. He took me out on a walk and I came back, my pockets were full. And I had a little collection as a kid and it disappeared when I went to college. One of those things I think back on now, I really wish I knew where it was, but in any event, I started with feng shui work and, moved out when we moved out to California. I've been here 30 years now and started working with feng shui in 1989. So this is 27 years for me. It's a long time, but I think look back on what we've done, and there's been a lot of activity, changes. And I moved out. I was a design build contractor, and started studying feng shui, and then incorporated that, and then started studying with Master Lin, and actually that began my consulting career. And since I was in California, there were some crystal shops, and I would buy a few things. I really didn't know what I was doing, but anyway, I appreciated them. Now, I started going to Brazil in 1998. I was brought there to teach different levels of trainings and consult. And Brazil is the source of abundant source of a variety of crystals. And so I was able to indulge my love of crystals and started bringing them back. And clients and friends saw that I had them and started to buy them. I started thinking, well, this is kind of cool. And but then in 2002, and all this time I had been bringing crystals back, learning about them from my students. And then finally, when I went back, last series of classes I did was in 2002. And by that time, my Brazilian students, they had pushed me and, I got all my notes from Master Lin together, and they were really responsible for me getting my feng shui CD with all of the transcriptions, all of the cures, all of the, the material I had. So it was available because, as many of you know, studying feng shui, it's very complex. There's a huge body of knowledge, and it's more than anyone could ever really remember. And all of the things can be useful at different times. So in any event, I got all of the different levels. My final last trip, I was doing, I think, 4 different levels of feng shui. And at the same time, we organized a trip. The people that sponsored me to get to Brazil, they organized a trip because some of my students had been learning about crystals from one of the best crystal teachers in the world. And so they took a trip to this little town, Diamantina, where I got to go to the mines, got to pick crystals up, and we'll see maybe see some photos of it a little bit later. And at this mine site, the crystals actually started talking with me and invited me, like actually they wanted me to start a new venture with them, bring them back to the US, bring people back to Brazil. And it was I'd have had some pretty amazing experience with land and earth energies, but this really took the cake. And so what I did was formally decided, I was inspired to start our business, Dynamic Energy Crystals. And it's just taken off. It's been wonderful. And at the same time, I started integrating crystals and what I was learning in the crystal energy with my feng shui work. And so I partnered with a friend of mine, Sharon Britton, who's an incredible crystal expert, has a business of her own down in Florida. And we started teaching classes on gridding. And grid is just making an arrangement of crystals. And we'll see some photos about that. And then she kept pushing me. She said, look, people want feng shui. And she brought me back into teaching again. And we combined with the crystals. And out of this was born Crystal Energy Feng Shui. And so now I'm really thrilled to be back with Helen and James again. And they're helping me get it organized. I'm not great at organizing. I'm great at preparing instructional materials and, integrating with feng shui, crystal knowledge. And so it's a really, really good relationship we've had over the years. And I'm excited that we've got the program all together. And this will be the first time that the entire full program will be offered on all the different levels at one time. So people can come, do the entire program, and become feng shui, crystal energy feng shui practitioners. Now, a little bit here, and I think what I might do here is start sharing my screen, James, okay?
That's great.
And just go over some of the stuff that, some of the things we're going to be going over with our, let's see here. Okay, start this. So.
You should be able to take the controls pretty easy.
Yeah, I've got to go and close this. Okay, so.
By the way, if anybody has any questions along the way, there's a chat box. If you move your mouse around, if you're on a desktop or laptop, or I think you just tap the screen on an iPhone or iPad or Android, and it'll bring up the chat bubble. Just type any questions into that chat box.
Okay, so you seeing it now?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back and let's see. This is the first time I've done this, so we're going to have a little bit of a challenge with getting this all working. But we've got the presentation, and let's see, we go. Okay, so it's crystal grids. Now, the first part of the program is learning about crystals. And it's the most essential part of it because, people are going to be coming in with, no to minimal to quite a bit of knowledge with feng shui. And wherever they are, they will be just fine. And you could actually say that the people with the most feng shui knowledge, they're going to have to leave some of that, like park some of that to get into the essence and the simplicity. And simplicity in the sense of lack of complexity. Anyone that's practiced feng shui or studied it for any length of time knows how complex things can get. And bringing the crystals in lets you get back to the basic chi energy. And they're like your friends and partners for producing the feng shui desired effect of harmony, balance, and well-being, but in a very simple, elegant, efficient, and very cost-effective way. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to learn about crystals and making crystal grids. Again, a grid is an arrangement of crystals. And the first thing we're going to look at, this is the photo from the flyer. This is a chakra grid. Now, this is something you could set up in a room, and you see behind it, you have this is a big piece of selenite. Not an expensive mineral at all. And selenite is very, very good for clearing and balancing and refreshing a space. And it's ongoing. It clears, it's self-clearing, and it's self-cleansing. And using it in connection with a chakra grid like this. So here we have a garnet sphere representing the red color for the first chakra, an orange calcite sphere for the second, citrine, a golden yellow color for the third. Then we have a pink for the heart chakra made of rose quartz, a green sphere here, a blue-green. And this is going to be to activate the throat chakra, and finally, and deep, I think is like an iolite, or could be a lapis lazuli crystal sphere. And you can see that color is very, very dark, intense blue. And that's going to be for the sixth chakra. And then finally, a very special clear quartz crystal with rutile inside, little miniature crystals. And we'll see a little bit more about that one later. But this is something you want to harmonize a room, set this up in a central part of the room, and instantly people that come in will have all of their chakras balanced. And so we're introducing these crystal types and crystal grids because it's very, very important that people connect with the energy of the crystals and get to feel them in their body. And it's a very automatic process. And that's one of the other real virtues of this kind of feng shui, is that anyone can feel it. Clients get into the energy right away. And so it just cuts out a lot of the mental questioning and wondering, because you can feel the energy shift, and then you have flexibility because everything can be moved. So if you want a different kind of effect, you can just make another arrangement with the crystals. And you can see these are very portable. Now, another kind of grid that we'll be working with is called a radial grid. Now, you start a radial grid, and you can see how we have here that we have 4 crystals. And they're in a shape that we call a laser crystal, which means kind of a longer, thinner shape. This is the shape we use for our crystal energy feng shui. We're making grids to adjust rooms and buildings. And now, this, though, is set up, we start with a personal level. And this is an example of how you can set up a crystal to adjust the energy in a small space. It could be a room. And you use the special type of crystal. These are quartz crystals. Generally, you want ones that are clear. They don't have to be pretty and nice as these, but they need to be quartz crystals, clear, where you can have a defined point. Now, here we are, and we set a small little crystal in the middle, and people are feeling the energy above it. And so the action of this, the crystals are channeling energy in from the surrounding area. And because of the nature of quartz, quartz is the foundation of our electronics industry. It has a way of smoothing and stabilizing, kind of cleaning up vibrations. So whatever energy is passing through here is getting harmonized. And that's one of the reasons that they're so effective for combating geostress and earth energy problems. Because whatever energy might be under the site or near the site, when you put the crystals in with the, crystals in with into the space, it just naturally harmonizes and balances the energy. It transforms it in the same way it works in an electronic circuit. Now here what we're doing is we've changed the orientation. You see how they were going in before? Now we put them out. And we put a black tourmaline crystal in the center. Black tourmaline is an excellent, excellent crystal for protection, repels negative energies, is very grounding, and has a way of bringing in whatever someone needs and what's needed in the environment to stabilize it. And you can see that by changing, we've changed the orientation of the crystals. So now these crystals are channeling the black tourmaline energy away from the central space, channeling it out into the space. So you're creating an energy field that's very good for protection, very good for grounding, that can repel negative energy. And you can imagine how beneficial that would be to use in a space. And now, one of the things you can do to make the grids even more powerful, it isn't necessary, but it'll make it more powerful. And this is the same technique that's used in the BTB feng shui. Sometimes called the black hat feng shui, as taught by Master Lim, to go and make a solution or a cure more effective. And he always used to say it would take something from 10 to 20% effectiveness up to 100 or 120% effectiveness. Well, the crystals already start at 100%. So someone can set these up, not use any kind of reinforcement, and still immediately feel a very powerful effect, which will continue as long as they're in place. If you put a visualization on top of that, and that's what we're doing here, we're using another crystal, and we're using it with a visualization and a process to activate the crystals, it makes it even more powerful. So comparing it to what you might use for the 3 secrets reinforcement technique, you're going from 100% to 200% or 220%. And it's a very simple process where you're just directing the energy through, and you can touch the points of the crystal and finally touch the center. Use the same techniques with the visualization, saying a mantra, and you make it that much more powerful. And so here now people are feeling, and this is what we'll be doing in the class, because it's very important that you get to know what these sensations are like in your body. And again, people pick up on this right away. That's one of the things that surprised me when I first started teaching these techniques, which how readily they were incorporated and assimilated, and then people started making them on their own. So the principles are very, very, very clear, very basic. And once you learn the qualities and the energy of the specific types and how the direction of the point makes the energy flow, it becomes just very natural to come up with the different grids. Now here's a grid where we've added more crystals, so you're going to have a more powerful effect and kind of a more coherent field spreading out into the room. We're still directing the points outside, so we're going to be sending the energy from the central crystal out. Now this is a citrine crystal. Citrine is very good for prosperity, generosity, balancing someone's emotions and feelings. It's called the merchant stone. And when we get into feng shui, working with the wealth area, areas where people may feel some anxiety, businesses, citrine is going to become a very, very important crystal style to use. Now this is citrine crystal that's been made into a sphere shape. And we also have natural crystals like this. So there are multiple forms that this can be in. And so what this grid is doing is taking the central energy from the sphere, this prosperity, clearing up any kind of negative thoughts or feelings or insecurities, and generating a prosperity field that's going to fill the room. And so again, here people are going and they're feeling the energy of this, and you can see how it's being sent out to the room. Now, here we've reversed the direction of the crystals. So now, instead of channeling the energy of the sphere away, these are now kind of, go back here. These are now kind of supercharging the citrine crystal, again with balanced energy. And then the citrine sphere will now, because of its spherical shape, is radiating that field in all directions. So it's actually generating like a spherical field. And something like this will fill up an entire room. So you can see it'd be very good for the wealth area, very good for any kind of a healing space. And you see how easy it is to achieve this effect. Now this is a magic sphere that I have, and I'll have that at the class. And I'm not sure how much is coming through, but you have little strands inside that sparkle. It's a type of quartz that's called rutilated quartz, because there's little needles of rutile crystal inside of it, and then tiny little crystals. It's very, very good. This is an excellent sphere for repairing someone's aura, activating creativity, and generally just charging the space with very, very good, positive, creative energy. Now, the next level, once we've experimented making small grids like this, smaller grids, we'll make ones to use when you're traveling, ones to use if you have a specific solution or a health issue or family member, friend that you want to help. But here we're setting up a chair grid. And so we're using spheres for the chair grid. And spheres, again, they have that natural radiative quality. We could also use just regular crystals too. And you can see we've got a big black tourmaline sphere here for grounding. We've got rose quartz. Rose quartz, very good for the heart chakra. Excellent, excellent crystal to use in the marriage area to support relationship. And it has an energy of harmony and universal love. And then we have some clear spheres added in around it. And you can see that this is a hands-on class. You will be making these grids. You will be participating in these directly. This is one of the women that sponsored the course. They have a rock shop in Wilmington, South Carolina. I'm sorry, Wilmington, North Carolina. And so we were setting up this grid. And then this is my friend Sharon. She's adding in some final pieces. And then showing that she's using a central crystal to go and put down inside to activate the space and do the final activation. So all that field that's generated, there'll be one central point directly under the people. And you can see how we've made it balanced. Here's the rose quartz, we've got the black tourmaline in the back, and then a collection of spheres in the front. These spheres are all made out of a certain kind of quartz called Lemurian quartz. And it comes from this mountaintop in Brazil, and the main miner of it is one of my best friends. So we use it a lot in our work. So here's the grid, and you can see that we put the little magic sphere down in the center with the rutile and little crystals. Here's the black tourmaline, rose quartz, and all of the clear Lemurian spheres. And so now people are sitting in them, and they're holding two more crystals to kind of support their energy. And notice, this is one of my students, Pat Zachary. She's very, very excellent at wire wrapping and creating jewelry. And we're also going to be incorporating this into the class, how you can use crystals to wear on your body and place on your body to support your energy and help you in your feng shui practice, really in anything you're going to wind up doing in life. And so one by one, the participants, you had the experience to feel the energy of the grid. This is her sister, Jo Zachary. And this is a view showing how you can imagine, and this is such a positive, wonderful feeling experience. You sit down, you feel balanced, you feel energized in a very peaceful way, and all of your energy starts to transform. And this is the kind of grid that you might recommend for a client. If they had a healing practice, a place they were going to go and meditate during the day, or if you wanted something that would be restorative for you. And so here's another one of the class members. Now, we're also going to first day set up some specialty larger grids. These are big grids that you can lie down and be inside of with your whole body. And it's important to do this because, again, we want you just kind of merged with the crystal energy and really understanding and feeling it, a sense of its power. And then once you have that, then we can go on to learn how to use the crystals for feng shui processes and solutions, because you'll have that integrated into your being. So again, here's Nicole. She's the owner of Wrightsville Beach Rocks. And these are a special kind of Lemurian crystal that I found and discovered at the mine. They were the foundation crystals for the Lemurian crystals, and I called them Lemurian roots. Very powerful. And not something someone would normally think you could take from Brazil and sell. But one advantage is that being tied in with energy, with all my feng shui experience, I can go to a mine and see crystals that'll be just excellent for people. And things that are very low cost that then you can use for feng shui adjustments. So you can see here's a whole collection of crystals all arranged around it. And they all basically have, and some have the points going in, some have the points going out, and there's a big one at the top right where your head's going to be. And so one by one, again, the participants are lying down inside the grid. And you can see your upper right here, it's my friend Kristen. And she was involved with the class too, and at that time was part of Wrightsville Beach Rocks. And you can see how happy she is. There's just such a positive feeling that gets generated in the room. And so here you are, and you'd be there for maybe 5 minutes, 10 minutes at the most. And you can see the serene quality that's generated. And here's the after. Talk about a chi adjustment. And everyone that came out of this grid looked so happy, alive, refreshed, and energized. And after you've been through this, then it makes it very easy for you to move into the rest of the course where we start teaching about the different kinds of crystals, the qualities of crystals, and give you a sense of what are the tools you're going to work with and what you're going to be adding to your practice in your life by having the crystals available. So James, you still listening here?
Yeah, I'm here. I was just muted.
Yes, I'm wondering if maybe we should take a few questions now, and then for this segment, and then I could go into more about what we're going to do in the class.
Sure, yeah. If anybody has a question, again, there's a chat bubble that you can just open and type your question into. If you're on Facebook, you can send me a question via the Facebook link, comments.
So, well, let's do this then. We'll go along. Let's see as questions come in. And now I'll go and show a little bit of background about the crystal energy feng shui.
Great.
So we'll come down to, and this is a presentation that's going to be available for people in the class. Let's go into, let's see, full screen. I had to figure out how to go into full, oh, here we go. Got to get it into full screen here somehow.
And if you want to open up the chat box, you'll see in there's a live link to the website with all the details of the course. You can find out more information there as well. And that's again in the chat, if you open up the chat bubble.
There we go. So this will be along with, once you register in the class and everyone's paid, get paid in full, then there'll be a link to a Dropbox. So we'll be able to access some of the material we'll be going through with the course prior to the course and be studying in advance. And then after completion of the course, this will also be available to you in a Dropbox file folder that you can go to and review. And so it takes away any kind of concern about having to take a lot of notes or, if you can remember something. Now, this is about creating prosperity and well-being with natural crystals and feng shui. This is at one of my clients' houses. Now, crystal energy feng shui can solve major feng shui site problems. And we're also going to look at crystal grid techniques. And we may not get to using natural crystals with the Bhagavad today, but this is an example of some of what you're going to be learning in the class. And today I want to give just a certain amount to show you the orientation and as a beginning to what we're going to cover in the class. Now, the course is dedicated to Grandmaster Lin Yun, our teacher, and this is him performing a chi adjustment ceremony in San Francisco. Now, as I mentioned, 1998 in June, I was invited in Brazil to give a series of feng shui workshops, and at the same time started learning from my Brazilian friends and students about crystals, natural crystals. And in 2002, we made a trip to the crystal mining region in Brazil. Now, I own 90 acres of land about 10 kilometers away from here, right in the heart of the crystal region. And this was my view out of the bed and breakfast where we stayed. It's this beautiful little provincial town of Diamantina, and it's named because diamonds were discovered in the rivers right near this town. Now, here we are out at the mine sites, and this is the famous Cabasako mine, where it's very famous for clear quartz and laser crystals. And this is coming into the mine site. And this is me, and this is where I have my epiphany about, the crystals speaking with me and the experience where I was inspired to start the business. And that was in the fall of 2002, and this is me back again in the spring of 2003. And it's so exciting, being out in the natural area, and there's crystals all under the earth there and all around there. And this is the mine site. And a lot of the mines are very, very simple. You can see you're going down in, maybe 2 guys working there. They're following a line of crystals. They're down there in a ladder. And I started to bring them back and started my business. And then at times there were big, huge clusters available. And going back in time, in a time machine, I would go back and get this in a minute. It was a little too big for me at that point in my career, and I got some smaller ones. But I started to realize that there were big, huge crystals, and that you could use this size to adjust an entire property or area or region. And I had one of my clients that said, Sean, I'm doing remodeling and I want to get a really big crystal for my house. And so I went over, I looked for the options, and this is the one that they picked. Sent it back, went back by sea freight, and it's not hard to do. The hardest thing is finding the crystals, but once you find them, it's easy to get them back to the US. And his site, he had a very beautiful multi-million-dollar house, but it was one of the feng shui sites where the property drops off behind. And so the energy goes down, and it's very hard to sustain relationships, sustain wealth, sustain development on the site, because there's no natural mountain shape or uplifting energy backing up, creating the back of the armchair to give you your classic beneficial feng shui site. So you put a crystal like this in, I don't care how steep the hill is or how big it is, completely reverses that trend. And also you have the natural energy of the crystal. You can see how beautiful this is. Now you can see how the property drops off, and you'll notice that the crystal, I oriented it so it goes and is directed to the back left corner of the house, the wealth area. And another feature of the crystals, and we'll learn about this, is certain crystal face shapes can be tied in with certain qualities of energy. And you can see this shape has 5 sides to it. So this is what they call an Isis crystal, feminine goddess creative power. And there had been a history on the site where it would have been beneficial for that kind of energy to come in. There's another crystal feature where you have little triangles on the surface. These are called record keepers, and that adds the knowledge that you're able to get out of the crystal. And you can see, looking from the inside out, you get a sense of the lifting effect, and it's always there, always generating, all channeling that powerful earth energy up and spreading it through the site. This is another client's house, and I'm going to go through this fairly quickly. They bought one of the biggest, big crystal that we had in our gallery, and so they had just bought a new house, and this was the sense that this was needed. This is the first thing they bought for their house. And so we delivered it, and we go in, and what do we find? A house on a cul-de-sac. As we all know, the energy goes straight through and out, and and so I went to the back, and a beautiful location, golf course, Pacific Ocean, but you can see the backyard is very short, and it drops off behind. And so what we did was we put a very large 750-pound or so type of crystal, a twin crystal, a style that's called a celestial or jacare, and citrine, again, good for prosperity. It's a twin crystal. Instantly, as soon as it was in place, all of the energies were balanced. You can see how beautiful this is. The light's coming in. You see the twin shape. And this is where you see here, you've got the road behind the house, drop off, very short backyard. When you have a very short backyard like this, it makes it very hard to develop on the site. And we know what happens when you have traffic going back behind you, and the drop off, very hard to sustain and generate positive energy and really prosper at the site. And they got this house for a very, very good value compared to the price, although without the crystal, it wouldn't have been such a good value. As we know, if you get a challenge, feng shui challenge place, and you put appropriate solutions in, then you create a lot of value for the owners and shift the future history of the site to being positive. Another cool thing about this crystal, this was a natural etched shape in the crystal of a bird. And here you see the twin aspect of it, so very, very good to support relationship, and kind of the golden brown color, which indicates that it's citrine. And here, my clients looking at it afterwards, And you can see what a positive energy effect it has on everyone. Now, when you're using natural crystal grids, when you're doing natural crystal grid guidelines, so this would be for our crystal energy feng shui, you want to use natural quartz crystals. Size is much more important than cosmetic quality. You place them at strategic locations in a room, building, or property. Secure their position and orientation. You want to make sure someone doesn't move them. Activate them with a 3-part reinforcement technique for maximum power. But remember, when you're using the crystals, it's not essential. You put the crystals in and you'll have 100% results. You activate that, we're getting into 200 plus result category. Experiment and be creative with care and awareness. And again, you want, not sure if this is, I'll hide this right here. Get professional help when appropriate. Now, these are the recommended sizes, and we'll be working with all these sizes. We'll have drums of these to work with. Everyone will have their own sets where they can experiment with grids, put them in, work in teams, make arrangements. And just a give you an indication of the size, this is the small size. And these are also available through James for people that have already had a class with me online or want to start using this even for the course. So these are small, 3 to 4 inch, small room or space, medium, 5 to 6 inches. This is a standard size used for most buildings. This would be large size for very large buildings or where there's excessive geostress. And then finally, we have the extra large size for big properties, big lots, or where you really need some powerful adjustment. Now, this is where we're going to be starting with our gridding with feng shui for buildings. We'll get some feng shui cures and start working with that from our grid techniques and our radial grids and working with our chair grids or grids specifically for area of the Bagua. But this is where we'll learn how to grid a house or a room. And the basic 4 crystal grid, the point face into the space, and it energizes, balance, and harmonizing. Then we have the 8 crystal grid, which is a stronger version. And if you look at number 3, sometimes people want to clear a space, or maybe there's some problems with electromagnetic fields, or they're very, very sensitive people. So in that case, we may choose to face the points outwards. And again, to decide which is going to work best for your client, you try it this way, see if it's strong enough. You want a little extra power, add some extra crystals in. Try this space, this arrangement, if people want more space. And then finally, here's the strongest arrangement. Again, this is all using natural quartz crystals. And it's the elegance of this system is that you don't have to worry about if you're doing it right or not. Because if you put it, oops, let's go back. Because if your client is in the space, you get them there, they say, yeah, this feels great, this is wonderful, fine, don't have to do anything else. If they say, well, this is nice, and you say, well, we have another option, then go and reverse the crystals. And they may say, well, this is much better. I really like this better. And so you know that's the one to use. Now you can also combine crystal types and things. And so here are some of the uses for natural quartz crystals that we're going to be introducing with crystal energy feng shui. To adjust and balance lots, buildings, or rooms with irregular or difficult shapes, you can place 1 crystal at each corner. And if you can't access the corners, there are feng shui solutions we can use where we find the central space and set up a grid in the middle. Or use one big all-purpose size crystal that fits the energies that you want to have for the house in the middle. Relieve geostress and harmonize negative earth or man-made energies. Lift, elevate, and create upward force when needed. You saw the example of the client where the land dropped off behind the house. You can direct the flow of energy to guard and protect, stimulate and activate healthy plant growth, and you'll see how you can solve many classic feng shui problems. quickly, effective, and economically. Now you see my little disclaimer I put on the back. This is a little advisory I put in the balance on the bottom here. Please note, in difficult situations and in the absence of direct personal experience or training in the use of natural quartz crystals, it's often best to consult a professional. Now, this is the same with feng shui or any kind of energetic practice, really almost anything you're going to do in life. If you don't have good direct experience or training, many times you call in a professional. So that's why we have our crystal energy feng shui training. Now, using the bagua for the crystals, that's going to be part of the class. And my hope is that in this intro, we've given you a sense of what we're going to be covering in the course. And now I'd like to open things up for questions. And again, if you go online, let's see, so we'll come out here, close this, and then, let's see, we're going to close all tabs. And then we're going to go to the online where this, I hope, will get us to, well, here's James's flyer. We have this beautiful flyer, and you can see it shows every the details about the training, what we're going to cover in all the different days, the day 4, which will also qualify people for the online certification point and process. And people, after doing the 3-day class, will be up and running. They'll be able to integrate it in practices they have. Someone starting from ground zero will be able to start practicing crystal energy feng shui. Now, it's important, well, we feel it's important that if you're going to set up a practice, all right, to go and find out how to create, structure, and manage a consulting practice based on your gifts, personal style, and vision. So while people would have all the tools they would need to start using this for their properties, homes, businesses, family, friends, or integrated in practice they already have, we recommend that people take the day 4 and then go on through the certification process, because it'll go over the essential steps to become a certified crystal energy feng shui professional. And very important, how to create, structure, and manage a consulting practice based on your gifts, personal style, and vision. When I started doing advanced teaching with feng shui, I found that people would have been to class after class and course after course, but they wouldn't be successful with their consulting practice. And what we're going to cover is what you learn when you set up a business, creating a mission statement, organizing it, how do you connect with clients, and things with marketing. But also, how do you make it yours and be successful with it? All class handouts plus additional supplemental material, graphics, photos, descriptions, videos, presentations, all will be online. You'll have, there'll be exercises where people will be able to demonstrate their crystal grid and feng shui knowledge base through reports about 3 consultations that they do. A home, a business, and a key issue appointment. You'll get evaluation and feedback. And then after satisfactory completion of the homework, you'll be certified as a crystal energy feng shui practitioner. Now, this is something I was never able to do as a feng shui teacher. Even though I taught feng shui all over the world, it was very difficult to come up with a certification program that really meant something. I mean, even now, Professor Lin, he talked about wanting to set up a certification program, and there are some good programs out there, but it requires a lot of rigor, and you really have to be able to certify people and know that they're going to be able to go out and do a good job, represent feng shui, and serve their clients. So with crystal energy feng shui, it's very doable, because once you're connected with the energy of the crystals, you learn about them and how to integrate them with feng shui, instead of trying to analyze a site and find out, well, what's here, what's there, is this a problem? What kind of a solution do I need in this place? You set up energetic fields that solve all of the problems of the site And it makes a lot of the regular, smaller, or normal feng shui solutions not necessary. And combined, you get an even more powerful effect.
Hey, Sean, you do have a question coming in.
Okay, cool. So let me go in. I'll go and want to go back to.
Oh, you can keep that up. That's fine.
Okay, cool. We'll go back to the. Let's see.
Yes, it's nice to look at the grids. We have a question from Catherine. She says our front door is street level and our backyard is a story below. Our house is built on a sloping hill, so it slopes away to the back. We look down in our backyard, and at the edge of our yard is a large wooded area. Would I need a huge crystal to bring energy up, or are similar crystals appropriate, smaller crystals appropriate? And what type should I use?
Well, see, this is where, that's more of a question than, can be answered, in this, like we need to know more things about it. But that's what we're going to be covering in the class. And it may be that a big crystal would be very helpful. If a big crystal is out of somebody's budget, then you can use smaller crystals, a number of smaller crystals. And let's see how I can...
Well, I like the fact that you have those energy grade crystals, which are less expensive, that are just as powerful.
Mm-hmm, yeah. And so, I mean, the big crystal is very impressive. It's very nice. And, but if you have like sufficient of the regular energy grades, that works just as well. So, and that's what we're going to cover in the class. And that's one of the beauties of, and positive features of this form of feng shui is that it doesn't have to be expensive. You put basic things in to solve the road conditions, the lot problems, incomplete missing areas of the bagua. They're all solved very easily, efficiently, and elegantly with the crystals. So, and the crystals, they're really, like solid state devices. They move energy, and they're structured, energetic mineral kingdom beings. They reproduce, they grow, and they have a certain specific energy. And again, it's the foundation of our electronics industry. Without quartz, we wouldn't have this computer. And the quartz crystals that you're seeing here directing towards the central sphere, those quartz come from a mine that was started in World War II. And it was started for the US war effort. And the crystal from this mine was used to make oscillators that went into the radios used to communicate in World War II. And that was our strategic advantage. We locked up the crystal supply. And so this mine has kept producing over the years. And now it's a major source of crystals, beautiful natural ones, but also ones that people are going to use for energetic processes like we're going to use with our crystal energy feng shui.
I just wanted to put a link up in the chat where Sean has made some grids available if anybody's interested in purchasing a grid for their home. I'll just put that in. That should be a clickable link there. There's also another webinar at that location. I just wanted to say a little anecdote that happened to me. I got involved with the crystals with Sean just last year, and I teach a feng shui certification program, a 5-day, straight ahead feng shui consulting certification program. And I was doing one in Seattle last year, and Sean had sent me a couple grids up, and I hadn't had a chance to, they somehow got misdirected in the mail. So it took me like a day going to different post offices to finally get the crystals, and started the program the next morning. And one of the participants in the program was like rubbing her head and looking down. I could tell that she was having some problems. And so I asked her, what was happening. And she said she was getting a migraine. And, that's the last thing you want when you're trying to learn and study and, you're learning new information. So when we broke for lunch, I pulled out and I set up a grid. I had a large energy crystal in each corner of the room I was teaching in. And when the group got back from lunch, the woman walked in and went, "Wow, what did you do in here?" And I had not mentioned anything about crystals. She goes, "When I walked in the house, my headache immediately dissipated." And this particular house which I didn't know before I got there. But once I got there, I measured for electromagnetic radiation, and it was sky high. I mean, it was frying. It would be a very unhealthy place to live. And so after consulting with Sean, he told me how to set the crystals up. And like I said, I hadn't mentioned it to anyone, and everybody felt this lightness. So the way I can explain it, it just kind of lightened everything up. So, I mean, there's a lot of power to these crystals.
Yeah, James, too, that made me remember one of probably my very first experience, all right, using the crystals with a client to help a client. I had a client, I've known her for a long time. They were the founders of the Learning Annex in San Francisco when I started teaching feng shui, and I've known them over the years, many of their different homes. And so my client had developed a mass in her chest, and it wasn't something that could really be operated on. It was kind of like, in their lungs and the center of her chest. And, the doctors were really at a loss as to what to do. And so she went and she had some testing done. And one of the things that came back was that she was suffering from geopathic stress. And so I went out to her house and I used my pendulum, went around side, and that's, I have a lot of dowsing experience, and I dowsed where crystals were coming in. They had a couple crossing lines. There was one crossing line, and a crossing line is connected with, people can have health problems if they're above it. And so there was one right under her bed, and there was another one right under where she sat and worked every day in her home office. So what I did was I went in with some of the crystals I've been bringing back, found some where there were the exact forms of crystals crossing each other, and she had someone install them on the dirt in the crawl space right underneath where her bed was. And again, the influence, when you're doing that, the best is on the ground, and then that whole energy will be cleaned up and cleared up and balanced all the way up, through the upper stories. And so that was the same thing that happened under where she worked and under where she slept. And she did some other things with her diet. She went on a raw food diet for 6 months. But the next time she went back to her testing, she didn't test at all for geopathic stress. That was gone. And then over the course of the 6 months or so, the entire mass went away.
Wow.
And so that really showed me how effective this could be.
Mm-hmm.
And started me on, using them as point solutions in areas. And then when I started to work more with the grids and the gridding technique, we were working up in the Napa Valley, to go in grid vineyards up there. And my first experience setting up a grid was with Alex Stark. Now, some of you may know Alex. He's a very, very famous feng shui practitioner, feng shui architect, and Peruvian shaman. And we set up a huge crystal grid of beautiful crystals I'd brought to the feng shui conference. And this was down in, what was that one, San Luis Obispo?
Right.
Yeah. And we set up a big grid in the ballroom. And he used it to process people where they released all of their negative energies and things. And that was the first time I really saw the power of setting up a big grid. And so at different events after that, I would set up grids too that people could be inside of. And that was my introduction to using the grid, similar to kind of the body grid that we saw. And then as I started learning more grid techniques, working with more of them, we started using them in properties and on the houses. And so this course, you get the benefit of all this experience from people working literally all over the world to get this technology together.
Well, that's great. I wanted to show real quick the page. Well, if anybody's interested, in taking the class, and I hope you are, because it's really going to be an exciting event. It's going to be in the San Francisco Bay Area. We'll begin on July 23rd. I'm going to check my calendar real quick. That's a Saturday. So it'll go Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. And that's for all of the complete crystal information in combination with feng shui. And then we have another day, the fourth day, which would be July, that would be 26th. And that will be for people who want to go the next step and become a certified professional CEFS practitioner. And if you go to the website where we had all the details, if you want to enroll either for the 3-day or for the full certification, we're making available today and tomorrow a coupon code where you will receive $200 off the program. So it's a great deal. And the code, I'll put in the chat box, but it's CEFS, Crystal Energy Feng Shui Now. So CEFS Now is the code for that. I'll just type it in here.
Now, James, one thing too is if people want to ask me questions about the course, I did a lot of talking here.
Mm-hmm.
But I wanted to give a sense of what we were going to be going over. If they want to ask me questions about it, we could put my phone number up there too, if you'd like.
Go for it.
Or they could, so it'd be 707
mm-hmm.
249
mm-hmm.
2873.
73. Okay, and I've also got my email address. You want to put your email address up?
Put my email address too, and that could be good too if you want to talk. Send me an email, and then we'll be able to go from there. Let me just get my a second here. Let's see. Go to. I'm going to give you the right one here. Okay, it'll be this. CEFENGSHUI, so Crystal Energy, and then Feng Shui at iCloud.com. So CE Feng Shui at iCloud.com.
Great.
And then if you want to send me your email, send me your phone if you want. Good time to call. We'll get into, because I'm really thankful that we've been able to team up and that this is going to get out in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's, people need it now. We have our business in Sausalito, a beautiful crystal gallery. People coming there from all over the world.
Gorgeous.
And there's another level that this, it's a store. People can come and get things, but there's a whole nother level that this works on. Just like when you're working with feng shui and you're working with crystals, there's a whole nother benefit level to all of the beings on the planet.
Mm.
And this is a way to get that out and merge like the crystal world, make that available for people. And then it's just a way of leveraging all of the, abilities and beings and powers that we can have and work together, which I feel is the future for the world.
Absolutely. Well, Sean, we're just about up on the hour.
Great.
Why don't you stop sharing your screen and I'll just show them very quickly.
Perfect.
Share mine. And on this page here, all the controls are in the way, I can't see it. It's kind of a long URL. I put it in the chat, but if anybody wants to send Sean or I, an email, I'll certainly email it to you. I'll probably shorten it to a bit.ly link. But there's also another presentation Sean did, which was great. It was in his studio and showed all the beautiful crystal formations and setups that he had there. And he's actually made available for us some very inexpensive crystal grids. Each one of these grids contains 4 crystals. The small ones, Sean, those small ones are like 4 to 5 inches.
I think it was like 3 to 4, 5 to 6, and
that large grid's got some.
7 to 8 for the large. Yeah, they're really big.
Yeah, 4 huge energy grade quartz crystals, and you just set them in each corner of the room, and you'll feel it right away for sure.
Yeah, and the small ones would be for small room or area, medium or kind of standard, and large for a bigger area. And these are special prices. They're actually pretty much wholesale.
Yeah.
Something we've done to get these out in the world.
That's great. I know, because you go into a crystal gallery just opened up in my town here in Nevada City. And even little crystals are, $80, $90.
Yeah, right. And that's the
But
thing.
they probably buy them from you.
By the time they make it through the supply chain,
Right.
that's because we get them direct in Brazil.
Yeah.
We get them direct from the mines.
You can't beat
No
that.
in between. And that's how we can have the variety, have the pricing, and that's what makes this whole system work.
Mm-hmm. Well, great. Well, thank you so much, Sean.
You're welcome.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Again, if you have any questions at all, you can call Sean. You can email. You can email me. Certainly, you can reply to the email you received for this. I'm also recording this, and I'll put it up as a replay. So if you came in late or you missed part of it, I'll have the whole thing up and send an email out for that. So I guess that's it. If there's not any other questions, we will sign off.
And thank you all so much for participating. Look forward to seeing you in the class.
Yeah, thanks again. Bye-bye.